MLB free agency is upon us, and no one has ever correctly picked 63 free agents and matched them to the teams that they are going to sign with before they do it. So that's why I have picked my top 63 free agents for the 2025 free agency class in the MLB, and I am going to match them with the team that they're going to sign with before they do it.
So yeah, obviously that's an impossible task, but the perfect scenario starts with Juan Soto going to Boston. It's my understanding that the two parties have had contact and it's gone well. Plus, look at all these Boston players that he follows on Instagram. He does not follow Derek Jeter. Juan Soto is Boston bound. Next up, we got Teoscar Hernandez, and I think he stays in LA. He played good. They won a World Series. I think they want to have him back, and they got enough money to do it. The Yankees miss out on Juan Soto, but they make a big splash and they sign Alex Bregman. A little bit of a spoiler alert, I think that Glaber is going to leave, and that leaves some question marks at second base and third base with Jazz Chisholm there. I think Alex Bregman fills that role well. I think he's a Yankee. Nick Martinez isn't the biggest name, but he posted a 4 WAR last year, which is surprisingly high. There seems to be mutual interest between him and the Reds, and he's a versatile pitcher that will flourish in many roles. I think he comes back to Cincinnati. Jurickson Profar is going to be one of the biggest names in the market this year, as the former #1 prospect really made his big breakout season at age 31. And with him being a hot commodity, you wouldn't think a small market team like the Reds would be able to get him, but he's the perfect player for Tito Francona, and I think that the Reds are going to want to bring in a player like him to appease their new manager, and I think they make a big splash. They go out and get him, and he flourishes under Terry Francona. Potentially a super utility guy that hits from both sides of the plate. I mean, what's not to love? You just got to hope he keeps it up. Max Fried's one of the biggest arms on the market. The Cubs are in the market for an arm, and they're not afraid to splash some cash. Lots of teams in talks with him, but I'm thinking Cubs. The Orioles are a hot, young, exciting team, and Corbin Burns is their ace. I think that they do everything they can to keep him, and I think they do. The Padres gave up a lot at the deadline to get Tanner Scott. I don't think that they're going to give him up easily. They obviously value him. I think they give him a good contract and he stays. The Yankees look to bolster their bullpen after their October run, and they bring in an old friend. Kirby Yates is back in the Bronx. The Dodgers have a ton of money, and they seemingly have a question mark at shortstop, so why not bring in probably the best shortstop on the market, Willy Adames? I think he comes in, and Tommy Edman moves into more of a utility role. Rich get richer. Why not? Sean Manaea kind of revived his career with the Mets, and there seems to be mutual interest between the club and him. I think they get a big deal done, and he returns to Queens. In this scenario, the Mets missed out on Juan Soto, so they go ahead and bring in the next best thing, Anthony Santander, and he brings some boom to their outfield. Yeah, he's not Juan Soto, but he is still pretty good. And, bold take, he becomes the most successful sports Anthony in New York since Carmelo. And let's make it a hat trick for the Mets here as they bring back Jose Iglesias. He was really good this year, but I don't think there's going to be that many teams that are going to be vying for his signature with his age and kind of where he was at going into this season. And why in the world would the Mets not want to bring him back? I'm fairly certain about this one. At this point in his career, Jock Peterson is a professional hitter, and that is exactly what the Blue Jays are targeting in this offseason. I think it would make a lot of sense for Toronto to bring him in and add him to that lineup. Tyler O'Neill has proven power, but I think there's going to be more doubts about his injury status, and the market won't be as friendly to him as he is hoping. I think he takes a 1-year prove-it deal with Colorado, and it works. Big contract in 2026. With Juan Soto gone, the Yankees looking for a big name to fill his spot in the lineup, and they get that in Pete Alonso. The big-time slugger swaps out his blue pinstripes for slightly darker blue pinstripes and moves to the other side of the city. He's now a Yankee. With Bregman off the books, the Astros are looking to bring in a big bat, and Christian Walker is that bat. They've learned from their mistakes signing Jose Abreu. They're going to get a star first baseman in his prime. Ha-Seong Kim is a very good player who might just be a little bit too expensive for the Padres at this point, but the Giants got a lot of money and they'll give it to anyone who wants to sign for them. I think Ha-Seong Kim will take it. Tyler Fitzgerald is the shortstop there, but I think they could do some shuffling, move somebody over to second base. They'll figure it out. There's been rumblings around the Cleveland media that Carlos Santana may be due for a return to Cleveland, and it kind of makes a lot of sense. David Fry is going to miss a lot of time, and Josh Naylor's on the trade block. That leaves a DH role open, and I think Carlos Santana would be a very good player to fit that role. Jack Flaherty looked like his old self again in 2024, and I think he's going to get paid like an ace. The Blue Jays are looking for an ace, and I think that they pay him. Jack Flaherty, get ready to learn Canadian, buddy. I think the Rangers are going to look elsewhere to improve their starting rotation. They're going to let Nathan Eovaldi walk, but he's still a very good starter. I think he's going to get a lot of money, and I think the Giants are going to be the team to do it. They got a lot of money to spend. And I said the Rangers were going to look elsewhere. How about an old swapperoo? Blake Snell heading to Texas. He's going to get the big multi-year contract he's looking for. And Eovaldi takes his spot in San Fran. Jeff Hoffman has really come into his own in Philadelphia. He's a big-time piece for the Phillies. I think the Phillies are going to really focus in on bringing in relievers this offseason, and they start by bringing back Hoffman. I think Frankie Montas is going to leave the Brewers this offseason, and that puts them in a position to need some more starting pitchers. And I think Jose Quintana is as solid as it gets. He goes back to the NL Central for his fourth team, and maybe he gets traded to the Reds at the deadline. Love to see it. The Mets have a lot of open roster spots, and Trevor Williams had a really good season last year. I think the Mets bring him in to be a part of their rotation, but the Mets aren't done yet. Gleyber Torres had a really strong showing in the 2024 postseason, but I think he wants out of New York, and I think New York wants him gone as well. I don't think he'll have as big as a market as maybe once expected, but I think somebody is going to give him a lot of money. And the Mariners could use some infield help, and hey, if it doesn't work out, they'll trade him in like a year and a half. And back come the Mets. They re-signed Severino because they can. And then they outbid their divisional rivals for Carlos Estevez, and he comes in to bolster their bullpen. But don't worry, the Phillies aren't done either. Michael Lorenzen was a mid-season acquisition for the Kansas City Royals, and they really overperformed expectations, made it to the playoffs, and I think they want to get back there again. To me, Michael Lorenzen could be a really quality piece to that plan, versatile pitcher, and I think the Royals bring him back with eyes for the postseason. And with the Phillies looking to re-bolster their bullpen after losing out on Estevez, I think Blake Treinen is a good candidate for them. He's been around the block, but he's adding another stop in Philly. It looks like Max Kepler's out the door in Minnesota. How about they bring in a similar type of player here in Jesse Winker? I think he probably ends up taking a smaller deal than Kepler, and maybe that's what the Twins are looking for. It seems like Kenley Jansen's been linked to the Orioles for a while. Craig Kimbrell really didn't work out in Baltimore, but how about another legendary closer? Worth a shot. Things have really seemed to work out well for Kyle Higashioka in San Diego. And if it's not broke, don't fix it. I think he returns to San Diego for at least another year. And with Christian Walker's predicted departure, there's a spot open for a first baseman in Arizona. And who better to fill that role than the legend himself, Paul Goldschmidt. I love a homecoming, and this isn't the first or last one I will predict. The Detroit Tigers are looking to compete, but they have the challenge of balancing exciting young players with win-now players. So this offseason could be really interesting for them, but I have them going for Jorge Polanco here. He'll fulfill maybe a utility role, maybe take over that starting shortstop role from Javi Baez. Shane Bieber is going to miss most of next season recovering from Tommy John surgery, but I think that the Guardians believe in him and he believes in the Guardians. I think they give him a long-term contract, what he's looking for, and he comes back to Cleveland, despite the interest from big market teams. Michael Conforto struggled to get a contract last time he was a free agent, and I'm predicting a similar situation here. The Rays might look around and see him as a good value, scoop him up while they can. But I'm not expecting too many more moves from the Rays at this point with the financial situation that they're. I don't think Alex Verdugo's stock has ever been lower. And the Marlins team is full of question marks right now. I don't think that they get a lot of free agents this year, but I think they're able to snag Verdugo. And then they let him grow his beard out and be himself. And he maybe gets back to normal, has a bounce back year. As much as the Guardians would like to keep Matthew Boyd, I think the O's give him a bigger contract, and he heads on over to Baltimore. They're betting on his career revival in Cleveland to not be a flash in the pan. How about another good old homecoming? Max Scherzer to the Tigers. Good young team in need of starting pitchers. Bring in a veteran to right the ship. And I think the Tigers would pay his contract too. I'm not sure why Aroldis Chapman wasn't traded at the deadline, but I kind of find it hard to believe that he'll go back to Pittsburgh this year. Then again, I don't think there's going to be too many suitors for him. I think the Rangers take a flyer on him, bring him back, and maybe trade him at the deadline again. There's been talks of a Justin Verlander farewell tour in Houston next year. Why not bring it all the way back to Detroit? Same reasoning as Scherzer here. You only need one of them to work out, really. And with the injuries they've both been dealing with, why not bring them both in? The boys are back in town. Walker Buehler looked really good in the World Series, but I think the Dodgers are going to be a little skeptical of his injury concerns. But the Braves won't, and they'll give him the big contract he's looking for. Walker Buehler, Atlanta Braves. Paul Sewald isn't a flame-throwing reliever, but he is a good one. I think big market teams stay away from him and the Royals are able to swoop in and sign him. Anthony Rizzo was always meant to be a Yankee. I mean, he just fits in too well. I don't see him leaving. I think the Washington Nationals could be a surprising team this year with the young prospects they have, but they're going to need some help, and I think Frankie Montas provides that. Probably not a top-level ace, but a very good starter. Clay Holmes seems to be on the way out of New York, despite being the best reliever on the team, in my opinion. But I think his drop from closer status to a reliever scares away some contenders and allows for a team like the Cardinals to swoop in and take him. The Astros gave up a lot to get Yusei Kikuchi at the deadline, and quite frankly, I think they value him more than other teams do around the league. I think they bring him back. Jacob Stallings is a really good backup catcher, and the Mariners need one. They like to make moves, and why not bring in Jacob Stallings? JD Martinez brings two things: good hitting and veteran leadership. I look around the league and think, who really needs that? The Washington Nationals stand out the most. They got a DH spot open and a lot of young players. The only question here is, does JD Martinez really want to go there? I guess we'll see. The Athletics are going to need some veteran leadership, especially if they trade Brent Rooker. And also if they trade Brent Rooker, they're going to need a right-handed hitting outfielder. And I think Randall Grichuk's going to be sitting there around spring training time without a team. I think the A's maybe give him a one-year deal. And if he proves that he could still hit, maybe he finds his way onto a contender at the trade deadline. I still believe in John Means. I think that he's still got a good shot of being a good pitcher in the MLB. And if I was him, I would try to go to the Atlanta Braves by any means necessary, but I don't know if the Braves want him, so I think the Cardinals get him. Max Kepler is a very good player, and I want him playing against the Guardians as little as possible. But I think the market for him will be a bit patchy. Ultimately, I think that the Giants are going to be the highest bidders for him, making his decision fairly easy. With Verdugo gone, the Yankees are looking to fulfill his spot in the lineup, and I think Mark Canha does just that. And I think it's a like-for-like swap, and I think that Mark Canha just kind of looks like a Yankee. I mean, it's mostly just the no beard and lack of accessories. Here's your Alex Bregman replacement. Yoan Moncada has kind of had a disappointing past couple of years. I think a change of scenery would do him wonders. And with Bregman gone, there is that third base spot open in Houston. Yimi Garcia looked pretty good in the games that he did play in 2024. And I think the Mariners want to see him more in 2025, so they give him a new deal. I think for as long as Andrew McCutchen wants to keep playing baseball, he will be a Pirate. He said he wanted to play in 2025, so I think he's going to be a Pirate in 2025. Rookie Sasaki is going to sign with the Dodgers because, of course, he is. They're building a super team. Nobody's going to be able to stop them. Anyone that they want to sign, they're going to do it, and they're going to win the World Series every year. I think the Padres will bring Charlie Morton in as a depth piece. He's not going to command a big contract like he once was. And I think the Padres are kind of looking for a swingman fifth starter, long relief pitcher. And I think at this point of his career, Charlie Morton might be good for that role. I think Ryan Presley is going to leave at a low point of a very good career with Houston, but I think he's still going to be regarded as one of the best relievers on the market, and I think the Phillies are going to snatch him up to bolster that bullpen just a little bit more. We're coming down to the wire here as I have Justin Turner having a reunion with the Mets as he tries to bridge the gap that Pete Alonso is leaving in his absence. Kevin Newman had a pretty solid season last year, but he's not a very exciting player, and I predicted that he was going to sign for the Angels, and that actually happened. So I'll give myself a 1 out of 1 so far, and I'm going to stop counting there. And I think the White Sox are going to be able to re-sign Mike Soroka. He might end up being their ace if they trade Garrett Crochet. And there you go. I think I got every team involved as well. But those are my top 63 free agents and the teams that I think they're going to. Let me know if you agreed. Let me know if you disagreed. Let me know who I missed. And subscribe if you want more baseball content.